All right, so my friends, wait, what? Did we already do this? Yeah, I missed a section. My bad. Brothers War Complete Set Review. It's all on YouTube right now. All the colors, all the cards. However, Brothers War has a unique additional subset of cards, very similar to Strixhaven and the Mystical Archives. This is a set of cards that are reprints in a different border that are not legal in Standard. However, they are legal in Draft, and they are legal in the limited format, which is very, very exciting. So today I'm going to go over all those cards. Normally, I do set reviews for limited and constructed. This is for limited and specifically historic. And as someone who loves historic on Arena, it's one of my favorite formats. I'm pumped for these cards too. So that's what we're doing right here, right now. A reminder, of course, 10 New Brews is going to be in a couple of days on Thursday. It's going to be a lot of fun. 10 New Brews will be standard, all the new cards. Pre-releases on Saturday, free to play for my subscribers in the Discord. Get in on that. Definitely want to do that as well. And again, the full set review is already on YouTube. Every single card in the main set. This is the supplemental set, which honestly is a big deal for Limited. If you played Strixhaven Limited, there's going to be one of these in every pack. And it does have a pretty big effect on the draft format and a really, really cool effect. I loved the Mystical Archives in Strixhaven. It was so much fun to just have this random like Lightning Helix, or whatever else, Approach Second Sun was insane. Even like Thrill, Discovery, and Duress, were really fun too. So I'm excited for this. This is going to be a lot of fun for Historic, a lot of fun for Limited. Obviously, Bronze and Mythic is coming up, and then I play a lot of Historic on stream anyway. So let's get started right at the bat with Adaptive Automaton. And again, once again, these are all reprints of famous artifacts from Magic's past and present in the old border that are not currently legal in, some are actually in Historic. I don't think any are in Standard. But so Automaton here is a generic Lord, a 3-mana 2/2. ADP, choose a creature type, and then it's the chosen type, and it gives a Lord effect for your type. So for constructed, this card is almost unplayable. This is just like if I'm playing some fringe, tribal deck and I want to fill it out, sure. But on rate, this card's pretty awful compared to most other Lords. So more of like a fun, wacky build around for Historic, for Historic. But in Limited, this card's kind of fine. There are obviously a lot of soldiers in the Limited format, and there are other creature types as well. 2/2 for 3 isn't great, but this is going to be the kind of fun Limited card that is going to make this feel a very unique format. Like the Mystical Archives. Like, this card isn't incredible, but it's a good and Limited, and it'd be fun to see as well. So this is a Limited card that's going to go from being okay to pretty good in your deck. And then for Historic, it's more of a fun builder. I'm sure I'll put this in decks in Historic, but not really going to turn the page at all. So up next is Aetherflux Reservoir, a Mythic. These cards have rarities. They are uncommon, rare, and Mythic. There'll be one of these in every pack, so very often it'll be the uncommon, occasionally it'll be the rare, even less occasionally it'll be the Mythic. So we're not going to see the Mythics too often. Reservoir is actually already in Historic, so there's no relevant context for there. For Limited, this card's mostly unplayable, not really the kind of thing you can do in a draft format. So kind of a whatever card, but it's got a cool old border, which is pretty cool. However, a big one here is Altar of Dementia. This is actually a very powerful card. 2 mana for an artifact. Sack a creature, target player mills X, where X is that creature's power. We've seen this card do broken things in older formats with Hogak and Vengevine and whatever, all sorts of stuff. Are those things available? Sorry, I'm still working on the bathroom. The baby's crying and they're working on the bathroom and I never sleep and it never ends. You gotta deal with it, folks. But this phone's going off. This is my life, folks. This is actually my life. Anyway, this card is really, really powerful. I don't know if the kind of decks exist in Historic to break this, like it's broken in like Modern or Legacy. Like Vengevine, Bloodghast, Hogak kind of stuff. But at some point in Historic's future, this will be broken at some point. So definitely a powerful card to keep an eye on. Definitely a good Brewers card. It's funny because in Limited, this was actually kind of interesting. If you're just playing a deck with like big green creatures and you kind of get in a board stall, you just play this, sack all your creatures and mill them out. So that's kind of a crazy effect to have in Limited. I wouldn't want to rely on it unless my deck was like pretty well suited for it, having both large power creatures and kind of a stally game state, but pretty crazy card too. So very interesting card in Limited, won't see it too often. Very cool on Earth also, that's very true. And you can mill yourself as well to try and hit more on Earth cards, which is kind of cool too. So this is a fun one. This is a really, really cool card. Up next is Ashnod's Altar, another altar sacrificey card. This is a 3-mana artifact, sack creature, add 2, another combo card. Will there be some combo with this card in Historic? Maybe. I would keep an eye out for it. You're not playing this card in Limited most likely. But Kind of a crazy combo card. Kind of a wild card. This is a very old school kind of Magic design. So seeing this in Historic would be pretty fun. Astral Cornucopia is a card that requires Surge Node to be good. XXX for an artifact. ATB's X charge counters on it, and then it taps for any color for a charge counter. So this is like a pretty generic mana rock in Limited. The mana for a rock that taps for any color is like, not great, but you'll play it if you need to. And obviously you can funnel more mana into this, 6 mana to tap for 2, and so on and so forth. Pretty inefficient, honestly, compared to a card like Everflowing Chalice. But this is the kind of card where it's played in Modern a little bit, because it is used with cards like Surge Node and other cards that put counters onto it. If you're able to play this for 0 and then add a counter to it, that's pretty powerful. Don't think that exists in Historic, honestly. So not really an exciting card for Historic or Limited, but it could do things in the future. Blackblade Reforged is next. This card is also already on Arena, so Historic is not relevant. For Limited, if you're playing a lot of Legends, this card is somewhat reasonable. It is, going to be +5/+5 or +6/+6, which is a lot, but it is very, very slow, obviously. The kind of card's probably better in Sealed if you're just like looking for some way to break through and win, but it's pretty clunky, honestly, overall. So if my draft deck had 5 or 6 legendary creatures in it somehow, maybe this card would be cool in it, but otherwise it's kind of narrow. Bonesaw, from big to small. Bonesaw is like the most efficient equipment of all time, basically. Costs 0 equips for 1, +1/+0. Pretty low-powered effect, but this card could see play with like Saram or something like that in Historic, maybe. It is a 0 mana artifact. There aren't a ton of those in Historic as well, but this is like, your pure synergy piece. Like, the power level is not there, also you're doing something broken with it, so that could be a thing. In Limited, this card probably doesn't make your deck. You would need some pretty heavy synergies to make this card work, and I don't think they're really there. So, not that exciting. I like this card a lot. It's pretty fun, but, overall, Burnished Heart, popular commander card. They made it for a 2/2. Pay 3, sack it, gets you lands, put them in play tapped, battlefield. 6 mana for Explosive Veggies. It's also a 2/2. This is going to be a fine draft card. It's okay. Maybe for Historic Brawl, this could be a thing if you're like really, really rampant in your non-green deck. But more of a commander card. Very, very expensive, very, very clunky. Caged Sun, mythic 6 mana artifact. When ETB chooses a color, you get an Anthem for all creatures of that color, and all the lands that tap for that color make double. Sort of like a Mirari's Wake if it's an artifact, and a lot clunkier. Another card that's like probably not there in Historic, just too clunky, and like 6 mana is just so much. In Limited, however, this card's pretty sweet. It's a big Anthem. He has something to do with all this mana. If you have a lot of mana sinks in your deck, which there are a decent amount of thanks to Power Stones, could be a thing. Probably not great overall, though, but again, kind of feels a little more like a Historic Brawl card, which is fine, which is pretty cool. Chromatic Lantern. Speaking of mana rocks that cost 3, this is kind of a popular card. I don't think this card's currently on Arena. Actually, I think it is, actually. Yeah, it is. I'm sure Ollie's played this card at some point. Ollie always plays Arena, so probably already on Arena again. And then for Limited, just another kind of, mana fixie mana rock. It's kind of clunky. If your deck needs mana fixing, you can play it, but it's not super exciting. Chromatic Star joins Chromatic Sphere. I don't know why, personally, that Chromatic Sphere is on Arena, not Chromatic Star. Chromatic Sphere was in like an anthology or something like that. And Chromatic Sphere has the really, really awkward text of the draw being inside the mana ability, which makes the rules go all haywire. And Chromatic Star is like the fixed version of that, because its trigger is on death of the artifact, so it's much cleaner. There's no weird rules quirks. It's also a better card in most of the time in a vacuum, where if you play this on turn 1 and your opponent shatters it, you get to draw a card. Or if you play it and sacrifice it to an ATOG, you draw a card. So I love Chromatic Star. I'm a huge fan of this card. It's a great little synergy piece. Obviously, no Tron in Historic, but this card is a powerful card that sees play in a lot of formats, and I imagine will definitely see play in Historic also. And then in Limited, just a really easy card to play. Just a cheap artifact, fixes your mana, draws a card. I love this card. I love it. It's cheap. Cloud Key. The mana for an artifact when ETB choose artifact, creature, enchantment, instant, sorcery. Spells of that type cost 1 less. Another kind of weird combo card. Kind of similar to the altars, where like this card probably won't do anything unless what it's doing is very broken. What will that be? I don't really know. Probably choosing artifact here, I would think, but it could be other things as well. Yeah, so possibly broken card. Otherwise, not really a limited card. Defense Grid, a classic. Boomer alert. This card is it's an anti-counterspell card. That's really all it is. This card sees play, honestly, back as far as Legacy, as a way to play against counterspells and other interactive things in your opponent's turn for combo decks. The card's, it's cool. It's kind of a relic of a bygone era, but it's a possible sideboard option for Historic. and not a card you ever play unlimited. Door to Nothingness. Somebody call Ollie again. 5 mana for an artifact. ETB's tapped. Pay Wooburg twice and sack it, and target player loses the game. This is like one of your classic meme cards, right up there with Battle of Wits. Kind of a very silly card, very expensive. Even if you have infinite mana, it still enters the battlefield tapped. So it just can't just be like the card that wins the game when I have infinite mana. So pretty silly card, kind of a fun build around, against the odds, yada, yada, yada kind of stuff. If you pull this off in Limited, I'm looking at you right now. If you pull this off in a game of Limited in Brothers War, send me a screenshot and I will give you a $20 gift card to CoolStuff8.com. And don't cheat. It has to be a ranked game, okay? A ranked Limited game. Send me a screenshot and I'll give you a $20 gift card to CoolStuff8.com, all right? There you go. A challenge has been set. So not really a Limited card, meme constructed card. Elsewhere Flash, 2 mana for an artifact, ETB draw a card. You sack it, and all your lands have the same land type. This card's interesting because 2 mana artifact that draws a card has like been playable in multiple decks over the years in like weird synergy places. I think there are better 2 mana artifacts that do that in Historic, so not really relevant there. But in Limited, just a 2 mana cantrip artifact. You can sacrifice it for value, which is kind of cool. And there are a set of uncommons that all care about land types, which is kind of cool. So this could have a little like side value there in Limited, aside from just being a cheap cantrip artifact in Limited. This is an uncommon. You're gonna see this card fairly often in Limited, and it's a good piece of fodder for your draft decks. Foundry Inspector, another uncommon. This is gonna be another important one for Limited. A 3/2 for 3. All your artifacts cost 1 less. And this card is pretty solid. In Constructed, it probably isn't quite there. I think it's already on Arena anyway for Historic, so nothing really there. But this is an important Limited card. The uncommons, again, there's one of these in every pack. So 24 of these are opened in every single draft. So the uncommons you see fairly often. And this is a card that is just actively quite good. There are a lot of artifacts in the set. The body is fine. And then if you're making your 7-drop artifact cost 6, that's really good. So super, super solid Limited card. Again, I'm really pumped for the Limited format having these in it. It's so much fun to have that extra flavor in each draft. Gilded Lotus, also on Arena. I imagine this card is not really going to work in Limited. There are some pretty big, 9 and 10 mana artifacts, but this is the kind of big effect you want for like a Broken Constructed deck or like your Commander deck. Not really for a game in Limited, but I mean, if your deck is there, maybe it's there. But there are unearth effects and there are mana sinks. So once again, if you have ways to spend this mana, it is pretty good. But very weird card to value it for Limited for sure. If an interesting one. The Belcher, Goblin Charbelcher enters the Historic format, and there are double-faced lands obviously in Historic. Of course, Belcher sees play often in older formats with the flip lands, which don't count as lands on the front side. And this is a kind of a classic combo deck. Even before those were legal, you play like Land Grant, stuff like that, or Mana Severance. And if you're able to get all the lands out of your deck, this is 7 mana win the game, which is pretty powerful. I would not be surprised to see this card making waves in Historic. Pretty, not like huge waves, but definitely could be a thing. Iron Crag feats also lethal too, or lethal. That's a Freudian slip, right? Legal in Historic, and could definitely be a thing. Huge deck building cost though. And then in Limited, I mean, if you're playing a red deck in Limited and you want, you're playing a lot of mountains, this isn't like the worst way to try and kill things and stuff, but it's super clunky and super inefficient. So probably don't want this card in your draft deck. Helm of the Host, big time commander card. Again, already on Arena in Historic, so nothing to talk about there. But in Limited, this is very, very expensive. But this is kind of like your typical, like, my sealed deck needs a way to win because the game is stalling out. This card will win the game kind of card. It's heinously expensive. It's 9 mana before it does anything and offers you the chance to get totally blown out. But it will also dominate the game as well. As you put it on a creature and you get a copy of the creature every turn. Yeah, it's what it is. It's a commander card. Howling Mine, the classic. Howling Mine has seen a decent amount of play in Constructed. My first Pro Tour ever was Pro Tour Honolulu, the Craig Jones Lightning Helix Pro Tour, and Howling Mine was a major deck in that format. Honestly, I played Zoo and I crushed Howling Mine like 4 times. It was awesome. But this card could see play. Turbo Foggy deck, some sort of weird card draw deck, and Historic's a big enough format where like there might be a deck that would want a card like this. So keep an eye on it for Constructed. For Limited, this card really can't be in your deck basically ever. But Ichor Wellspring, there you go. Another 2 mana artifact with value. This one actually has a lot of value though because it triggers on both ETB and Death. So if you're playing like a red-black or kind of sacrifice artifact deck, this card's going to be a very high pick, actually. If you're playing the 2-mana thing, it sacks an artifact to kill a creature. There are red commons, sacrifice artifacts for value also. This card's good. 2-mana piece of fodder. You're already interested in playing the 2-mana artifacts that only draw. This one draws on death too, so it can draw 2. And it's uncommon. This is going to be a high pick in your draft decks if you're into this sort of thing. And you're going to see it in a lot of drafts. Just super, super cool. Love it. Spying Statuary, already on Arena and Historic, and then completely unplayable in Limited, so we'll skip it. Ivory Tower, a classic boomer card. 1 mana for an artifact. Beginning of your upkeep, you gain X life for X the number of cards in your hand -4. I could see this possibly being a sideboard card in Historic control decks for like burn decks and stuff like that. Definitely kind of a weird card. Requires you to have a pretty hefty hand, of course, to do things, but the effect is pretty powerful as far as gaining 2 or 3 life a turn. So it could definitely be a thing in Historic. Kind of a weird old classic effect. It's cool to see. In Limited, your hand's rarely ever going to be this big. It's basically unplayable, but kind of a cool card in Historic. Golem Tome. 3 mana for an artifact. Pay 2 to loot. Pretty bad card. Pretty bad card. We have Maze Mine Tome, which is 1 mana less than this, and just draws the card. Or Record or Bank Buster. So this card's embarrassingly bad and constructed. And then in Limited, again, really slow sealed deck. I keep saying this over and over again, but really slow sealed deck is a way to put the loot, sure, but this card's just pretty freaking bad. Journeyer's Kite. This card saw play in Kamigawa Block Constructed. 2 mana for an artifact, pay 3, and search for a basic. Also heinously clunky. Just a really clunky, slow card, You can't dirtle as much these days in modern day Magic, so probably won't see any play in Historic. And then in Limited, it's kind of a cool way to turn your Power Stone mana into basic lands, because you can follow mana to this, get the lands, good and slower decks, but kind of a weird old card, just a relic of a bygone era. Keening Stone, 6 mana for an artifact. Tap 5, target player mills X cards or X number of cards in the player's graveyard. This is a very, very expensive clunky card, but again, if you're looking, I'm like a freaking broken record. If your draft deck needs a way to win, here you go. Play it and then just deck your opponent out in 2 turns. That will certainly work. But yeah, you get the idea. Key to the City, also on Arena already. In Limited, this card's fine. It's just like a reverse looter where you discard the card and then draw a card on the next turn by paying 2, which is fine, honestly. And then you can also make this unblockable, which is kind of cool. Kind of a weird, oddball Limited card, but this card's definitely fine in Limited for sure. Liquid Metal Coating. Oh shit. Is this card on Arena? I don't think Coating's on Arena, because this is obviously used in concert with Karn, the Great Creator, to kill lands, and that could be a real thing in Historic for sure. So this is kind of a big one. Karn decks just got a lot better in Historic. Now they have the ability to go get this thing and kill lands, which is pretty powerful. In Limited, you're not playing this card, but in Historic, this is a real big deal. Perhaps one of the most impactful cards in the set, honestly, as far as Karn goes. So that's a big one. Lodestone Golem. I love this card. I'm a huge fan of this card. I play this card's in my cube. It's probably not going to do too much, honestly, in Historic. Because I don't really know what deck could want this card, but it's a sweet card. This is the kind of card where, without Ancient Tomb or a Mishra's Workshop or something like that, it's not really good enough, but it's a cool card. I like it. I'm about it. In Limited, the sizing's fine. A 4 mana for a 5/3 is certainly reasonable. The effect could be reasonable also. So maybe one day when we get Ancient Tomb and stuff in Historic, but probably not quite. Still, a happy addition. Maze Mine Tome, as I was saying earlier. So this card's already on Arena. In Limited, this card's great. It's cheap enough to keep drawing cards. It's a great engine. Very, very good card. Mesmeric Orb, a card that's not on Arena, and a powerful card in Modern Mill. And if you're going to build a mill deck, this card is exceedingly powerful. It's 2 mana artifacts, hard to remove. Mills a lot of cards. It mills you as well, too. So if you're playing some sort of dredge deck, this could also be used for that capacity. There are also combos of this card where you can play some sort of thing that untaps itself and mill your entire library with no dread return, or the legacy kind of cards that would be needed for that effect might not be good enough, but it's a very powerful card, and it's a cool addition to the Historic format. And this is why I love Historic so much, because there's just this wide array of crazy cards in the format, and they all work together in really, really cool ways. And it's really fun seeing these historical pieces of Magic in this brand new context, so I'm all about it. Millstone. Speaking of milling stuff, this is the original. This card's already on Arena. In Limited, if your deck needs a way to win, this can do it, but it's pretty bad, honestly. It's very, very slow. You need to sink, like, 20 mana into this over 10 turns to win the game, and that's pretty bad. Mind's Eye, more of a multiplayer card, right? Poor Arena. 5 mana for an artifact, and if your opponent draws a card, pay 1 if you do draw a card. If you didn't pay 1, it'd be insane. But because you do, it's pretty clunky. Even in limited, if you have a lot of Power Stones, and you have a good way to kind of like, get a lot of mana in play, get this card going, it could be good, but it's very, very slow and very, very clunky, so kind of a miss. Vicious Bauble. Nope.
They have a warrant for your arrest. You're going to jail.
This is the only card in the entire Retro series or Mystical Archive series that is going to be preemptively banned in Historic. Now, of course, when the Mystical Archives came out, Channel, Demonic Tutor, Swords to Plowshares, there were a few cards that were banned immediately in Historic because they're way too good. This set only has one. It's Vicious Bauble. Honestly, it's funny because I think, Historic's the only format right now where Lurrus is even legal. And without Lurrus, I think Bauble's probably fine. So maybe they'll flop that if they're going to do that. Cool to see this card, old border for older formats, obviously, which is kind of cool. Probably going to get one of these in my cube. But yeah, so it's banned in Historic died for Lurrus' sins. In Limited, this card is honestly not very good. You don't really have much to do with it in Limited. If you have effects that care about artifacts ETBing or something like that, but there's no Delirium, there's no Delve, there's no fetch lands. So Limited, not very exciting, and then of course, obviously not available in Historic. So we'll see if they ever unban this, if they ban Lurrus. Mox Amber. Another card that's already on Arena, so not too much to discuss there as far as Historic goes. And then in Limited, this card's pretty much unplayable. You would need a pretty heinous amount of Legends, but cool to see it in the old border. Mystic Forge, also on Arena already. From an artifact, look top card of your library, may cast artifact spells from the top, pay 1 to remove the top card. If your deck is super heavy at artifacts in Limited, this card's playable for sure. 4 mana, just kind of keep drawing a card every turn. Cool way to use your Power Stone mana. Pretty fun card for Limited. I don't know how good it's going to be. Your deck needs to be pretty colorless and artifact heavy. But it's a fun one. It's a fun Limited card. Ornithopter. Old Ornithopter. Doesn't matter the plane or the time, someone always invents the Ornithopter, right? Or in Historic, obviously. In Limited, I think it's pretty hard to find a draft deck that would want this card. There aren't really any cranial platings or stuff like that in Limited, but hey, it's an old border. It's cool. Perilous Vault, no Oblivion Stone, just Perilous Vault. 4 mana for an artifact, pay 5, exile it, exile non-land permanents. I mean, as far as Karn targets go, and if there's some sort of big mana deck, which there probably isn't, I mean, 9 mana, exile everything, just play Ugin. It's just pretty freaking bad. It's very, very slow. So, I don't know, whatever. It's not a particularly great card. In Limited, similar to Karn Silix in that, it's just very, very clunky and slow. It's okay, but Phyrexian Processor. This is a boomer. Holy shit. Boomer card. This is an ancient Magic card. Processor is a 4 mana artifact. When it ETBs, you pay any amount of life. And you pay 4 to make an XX minion token where X is the amount of life paid. This card used to play back when with Tinker. There used to be processor mirrors back in the day where you'd pay 19 because there was no way for them to burn you out. Really, really relic-y old school Magic card. Yeah, Kai Bude played this card. Kai Bude played this card. That's all you gotta say. All right, that's how you know. That's how you know how old it is. As far as a card in Historic, probably not. 8 mana to make 1 big creature is pretty bad, honestly. Again, you just play Ugin or whatever. Tinker is not in Historic. No Tinker there. So Historic, probably not. In Limited, this is a pretty good Power Stone sink, honestly. It's a good thing to sink your mana. It's a little clunky, but it is a very powerful effect. You pay 4 life, make a 4/4 every turn. It's pretty insane. So pretty fun card to see in Limited. It's cool. This is a cool one. This makes me smile. Phyrexian Revoker. This card is not on Arena yet. Kind of like a middling card. It sees a little bit of play constructed, but really, realistically, it's just so fragile. This might be a nice way for certain decks to beat certain cards. If you're playing a company deck and there's some artifact or planeswalker you can't beat, but they have much removal kind of thing. Not a bad card to have, but realistically, just not a very powerful card. In Limited, totally fine. It's a 2-1 for 2. It's with upside. It's fine. Definitely a card that could see a little play, but It's all right. It is what it is. Platinum Angel. Is this card in Arena? I think it is. I think it was in an anthology, right? It's so funny. I don't know what, people say that, like, one of the downsides to Arena is that, one of the downsides to Historic is you never know it's legal. I think that's the fun part, honestly. It's already in Historic. Yes, it was in an anthology. So just a cool old border version of the card here. Doesn't do too much in Historic, but pretty busted card in Limited. There are obviously a lot of shatters in this format, disenchants, things like that. But pretty powerful. Pretty powerful. Again, good. The card, I feel like the card that gained the most from this set is Karn the Great Creator, and it's not even close. Another good sideboard target for Karn, but again, already in Historic, so no big changes here. However, Precursor Golem. I love Precursor Golem so much. 5 mana for a 3/3. When ETBs make 2 3/3s, and when a player casts an instant or sorcery that targets only a single Golem, you copy that spell for all the Golems. So, 5 mana for 3 3/3s is pretty good. Honestly, that's a pretty powerful effect. Then, of course, if they have one Doomblade, they can kill all 3 at once. But if you have your own spells to target it, you can target it yourself and Giant Growth it or whatever. You can, whatever, play a cantrip on it. It's just a really, really fun card. It's probably not going to do anything in Historic. This has been a card that's been in my cube for a long time. It's a really powerful card to ramp into in artifact decks. But just a really, really fun card. Gonna be a really fun Limited card. Very, very powerful card in Limited. And you might have pump spells and stuff like that too. But this card's super fun. One of my favorite designs as far as just like fun designs go for cards. I'm all about this card. I love Precursor Golem. Really fun draft card. And then probably not in Historic. But that's the fun of his stuff. The fun of his retro things is like getting to see a card like Precursor Golem again. And then seeing it in a spot where it's relevant and limited, which is super cool too. So I'm very excited for this set. For Bronson Mythic. I'm very, very excited. Pristine Talisman, Pauper All-Star. They had Artifact, tap for colors, gain 1 life. This card's actually quite good. It's much better than it looks. You gain a lot of life over a long period of time. That being said, is there a Historic deck that wants this? I don't know. Probably not, but it's a cool card. And Limited, this card's also reasonable too. It's not a mana-fixing rock, but the life will add up over time, so it's kind of a cool card. Psychosis Crawler, 5 mana for a star, power and toughness equal to the number of cards in your hand. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. Pretty weird one, because obviously by the time you play this, your hand's not going to have any cards in it. And if you're drawing a lot of cards, you're probably not playing things, so they can just kill this. This is a weird one, honestly. Kind of just like a weird, awkward card. If you're drawing a bunch of cards, I don't see why you need to play a 5/5 with no evasion. Like, to try and win the game, just win with something else too. But what are you going to do? It's just a weird card. In Limited, if you're able to draw cards and keep cards in your hand, this card seems fine. But yeah, this is all right. Someone asked in chat why all these cards are rares. It's for Limited. Because the major fun of these sort of like Mystical Archive extra sheets is Limited. So the rarities are very, very important to keep. You can't have what's it called? Precursor Golem at common or whatever, so the rarities are important, or Platinum Angel at uncommon. So the rarities are important for Limited, and then, these are cards that people already have. They're just fun reprints too, so. Quicksilver Amulet, 4 mana for an artifact, pay 4, put a creature to play from your hand. Again, not a card you're going to see playing Construct. I think this card's already on Arena anyway. Then in Limited, just spend 8 mana and cast a creature, right? Just not a very good card. Quiet as Spike. Shh. 3 mana Equipment. Equip for 3, give a creature Death Touch, and when that creature does damage to a player, they lose half their life rounded up. Pretty bad card. Really, real clunker. 6 mana to equip, and it doesn't even do that much. The card's kind of bad. Ramos, Dragon Engine. I don't know what this card is. Is this card like a commander card or something like that? I actually have no idea what this card even comes from. Let me take a look. It is a commander card. It was in Commander Legends 2017. So, never seen this card before. 6 mana for a legendary dragon, flying 4/4. Whenever you cast a spell, put a counter on it for each one of that spell's colors. Remove 5 counters on it to add double Wooburg. Ooh, combo with Dory Nothingness. This is like a historic brawl card for sure. Definitely a fine Limited card. Because obviously if you just play this and then play a white spell and then play a white spell, it's a 6/6, which is kind too. So, cool Limited card. And what makes this card fun is that this card is a cool Limited card. It's not like insanely good. It's just like a pretty fine card that's reasonable. It's better than commons and uncommons. But it's also not busted. And it's just fun to see a card like this in play. It's just like a bizarre card. You gotta like adapt to this new scenario, So Cool card, fun limited card, and then kind of a fun historic brawl card. Rune Chanter's Pike, a classic. This card used to see play as a 1-of in almost every Delver deck when it was in Standard. 2 mana for an equipment, 2 equips for 2. Creature gets first strike and +X+O, where X is the number of instant sorcery cards in your graveyard. So if you're playing like a Delver deck or a Prowess deck, it's going to be a 1-of to kind of power up creatures. What made this card playable in Standard was Moorland Haunt, which was a land that allowed you to pay a white and a blue and tap it and exile a creature from your graveyard to get a 1/1 flyer. So with a Moorland Haunt in play and a Pike in play later in the game, you always had like a 10/1 first strike flyer, which is pretty good. So that was a lot of what made this card playable in Constructed. So as it stands in Historic, this card probably isn't there, but pretty fun card. And then in Limited, really cool card in Limited, honestly, because if you're playing a Prowess deck, this card's great. And if you're not, it's not very good. So cool card. Again, fun limited card. Fun to see this card in a new context. Scrap Trawler. Oh no, Scrap Trawler. Everyone's getting flashbacks of Crackland Ironworks. This is a very powerful card. I think it's already on Arena, actually, so it's not even like a card to discuss that much, but it can do very powerful things. It is already on Arena, yes. It can do some pretty broken things, but it does require a very specific deck building circumstance, and it is very fragile. So in Historic, it's already there or whatever. In Limited, though, this card's pretty busted. If you have like, your 2-mana artifact that sacks to draw a card, then you play a 3-drop, and then that thing dies, you get it back. Great value card. Very powerful card in Limited for sure. A fun one. Real fun one to build around in Limited. Very, very solid Limited card. It's cool. Sculpting Steel, I believe also on Arena. It's okay. Not a great Historic card. Pretty good Limited card. You can copy your opponent's crap, copy your crap. Here's a fine draft card. Pretty fun. Self-Assembler. This was a common in some old set that was really, really fun. 5 mana for a 4/4. When it ETBs, you search for an assembly worker. I believe in that set there were only like 1 or 2 assembly workers. There were actually a pretty decent amount of assembly workers in this set. So this is a 4/4 for 5. It draws a card, and it gives you a little bit of extra, tutoring. This is going to be an important card in Limited also. And again, it's an uncommon. You're going to see at least 1 or 2 of these every draft. I mean, 1 or 2. You'll see 1 every 3rd draft, but that's more often than you would expect. Maybe less than that. I don't even know. There's 60 cards in this thing, but like there's like uncommons. You obviously want a draft, honestly. So gonna be a very cool limited card. There are a lot of assembly workers, and just a good value engine. Just a fun limited card. Super cool. Semblance Anvil, another broken artifact combo card. The mana for an artifact, imprint a card, and the card that's imprinted on it, you exile from your hand. All spells cost 2 less that are of that type. Again, this is kind of card where it'll do broken things or it'll do nothing. And then don't play it limited. Sigil of Valor. 2 mana for an equipment. Whenever a equipped creature attacks alone, it gets +1/+1 on the turn for each other creature you control. This is a very good limited card. Say you have 4 or 5 creatures in play, but it's on a flyer, yada, yada, yada. So this card is a super, super solid limited card. In the Constructed, no, but it's uncommon. You'll see this card fairly often enough, and it's just a good one. Good way to push through. Definitely, if this is kind of card for a deck that's kind of like gum things up and then send that 1 flyer in. So it's a little deck contextual, but the card's just pretty good. Soul Guide Lantern, already on Arena. Very recent card. We don't know what this card does. It cantrips in Limited. It's a card. Springleaf Drum. Woo! I am happy. Springleaf Drum enters Explore and enters Historic. This is a very, very important piece for artifact decks in Explore and in Historic. This card is going to see a ton of play in Historic. Like a ton of play. And I'm excited. I'm going to be playing it a lot. So, super awesome card in that context. Very, very excited to see it. And obviously, of course, it's in Pioneers, which is Explore. And then in Limited, not really the kind of card you want in Limited. When this card was legal and was first printed, it was in Lorwyn, where one of the major mechanics for Merfolk was tapping them. So it had a lot of value there. That's not present in this set. So it is going to be, a mana fixer. It's a cheap artifact if you want a cheap artifact, but not a great limited card. But it is definitely a super big ad for Historic and Explore. I wish they used the old art also, I agree. Staff of Domination, fun casual card. The mana for an artifact. You spend a bunch of mana, you get things. There are many better mana things in Constructed, but it's like a amusing card. In Limited, it's really, really clunky. If you're Power Stoning out your ass, this card can be pretty cool, but it's really, really slow and clunky. So if you're making a bunch of Power Stones, want something to do with it, this card fits the bill. Sundering Titan. Woo! Damn, that's a classic. This is going to be a pretty impactful card for Historic because this card is pretty bonkers when you cast it. You can kill 3 or 4 of your opponent's lands. They're playing a multicolor deck, and that's very, very powerful. The old 7-10 split, and it's just a really good card. So a good thing to ramp into in Historic for sure. And then in Limited, this card's also pretty awesome because casting an 8-drop is not crazy with Power Stones, things like that too. So definitely got to be a bonkers one. Good reanimator target in Historic. And then, of course, fine just to cast also. Good card and target. It's a big one. Again, wish they used the old art on it. I think it's a huge miss to use newer art with the older border. But what are you going to do? Slipfoot Boots, popular commander card. Not going to see any play constructed. And then, honestly, it's only okay in Limited. Hexproof and Haste is not great. You want stats. So, just a Historic Brawl card. Sword of the Meek. Thopter Foundry. Where's the Thopter Foundry?
We have technology.
Apparently, we don't have technology, actually. So, Sword of the Meek, of course, is a combo with Thopter Foundry. That card that's been a combo in Extended, in Legacy, and Modern, and allows you to spend 1 mana every turn to make a flyer and gain a life over and over and over again. But without Thopter Foundry, Sword of the Meek is kind of just a weird, awkward card. It's a 1/2. I'm sorry, it's a 2-mana equipment, equips for 2, plus almost 2. And whenever a 1/1 enters battle under your control, you may bring it back from the graveyard and put it on it. So a Narco Amoeba or stuff like that. But like, it's such a small payoff for a hard thing to do, but it's just like not really worth it. The sizing isn't the worst in Limited. Plus 1 plus 2 isn't that bad for an equipment. So it's somewhat interesting. It's cute to stack with Anvil. Sure, that's cute, I guess. But is that really necessary? Probably not. But yeah, it's a weird one. Again, a lot of why I like Historic is seeing a card like this in a different context, and that's cool. Thorn of Amethyst, another prison card. 2 mana for an artifact that says Thalia. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. A very popular prison card in like Vintage and Legacy. But again, a card that needs Ancient Tomb and stuff like that to be really, really good. But kind of a cool card to have. Good anti-combo card, good anti-control card. If you're playing Thalia and stuff like that, you can do like a Death and Taxes sort of thing. Again, a fun card to see in Historic. Don't play this card in Limited. Unwinding Clock. 4 mana for an artifact. Untap all artifacts you control during each other player's untap step. Kind of a fun commander card, but I don't know what you'd ever want to do with this card in Constructed, and that's unplayable in Limited. Well of Lost Streams. 4 mana for an artifact. Whenever you gain life, may pay X, where X is less than or equal to the random life you gain this turn. If you do draw X cards, just play Shauna in Constructed. Don't play this card. It's pretty bad. And then in Limited, I mean, if you have a deck that can trigger this reliably, go for it. But that's probably not going to happen. And then our last card, the biggest and the baddest of them all. Wormcoil Engine enters Historic. Of course, huge threat at a Tron decks. Insanely good card against like Rakdos decks and like Jund decks and mid-range decks. Really, really powerful 6-drop. You know, one of the more powerful 6-drops available. Gonna make an impact in Historic for sure. And this is your Windmill Slam limited card. It's pretty damn hard to beat this card in Limited. It's pretty unfair. And I'll tell you what, we'll give it best in show. I didn't do any awards for this section because obviously there are no commons. And there's not really like, it's only for one format, but whatever. We'll do best in show for Wormcoil Engine just to hear music and hear Stevie Guy dance. So that's it. That's the entire Mystical Archive retro sheet for Brothers War. I am pumped to play these cards in Limited. I thought they were so much fun in Strixhaven. Looking forward to seeing the same sort of feel in this set. Looks like a fun draft set. Looking forward to Bronze and Mythic. Of course, I have 10 new brews coming up on Thursday. And then Bronze and Mythic will start next week, I believe on Tuesday or Wednesday, when the set actually comes out. Look for that coming up. Go check out the set review. Check out all the other sections of a set review. It's all on YouTube. Go watch that. And I got more stream to do, but YouTube folks love you. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you think. Peace.